Good evening and welcome to another You Decide. I'm your host, Byron Campbell. This evening our topic is the new insurance regulations in the OECS. And our guests this evening are Kenny John. He's the chairman and managing director of Newham Insurance. He's also chairman of the Insurance Association of the Eastern Caribbean. And Nigel Street. He's the deputy executive director of GAFIN and chairman of the Regional Steering Committee on New Insurance Regime in the Eastern Caribbean. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to You Decide. We're, of course, looking at the new insurance regulations in the OECS. Welcome and good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
This new proposed bill, taking a cursory look at it, is over 281 pages, some 29 parts. Tough document to digest, I would say. Significant reform in the insurance sector, for the insurance sector. But let us begin with the all-important question. Why reform at this time, gentlemen?
Well, let me just say good night to your viewers again. Yeah. And the issue of reform is something that I think has to be ongoing. I think as any company, any body that stands still would realize that time passes on them. Mm-hmm. So for us to remain current, we have to continually review, relook, re-examine, and determine whether what we need to change and what we need to do going forward. I think the period 2009 to 2011 was a very important and significant period for us in a number of ways. I think we had a number of financial crises which affected the region, and then you had turmoil internationally. I think that provided policymakers with an important backdrop to relook what happens within the financial system and to determine whether the structure of the financial system as it was at that point was still working for us. Was that still effectively where we wanted to be? And I think the answer to that was that there should have been some improvement, that there could be improvement. So the idea behind this project is to come up with a regulatory regime that is more cost effective, but also more efficient in terms of addressing some of the weaknesses identified within the financial system, some of the weaknesses that needed to be addressed by regulation, but also by closer interaction with the industry and bringing the parties together to identify a structure that works for everybody. So that's the backdrop behind the project.
Okay. What I see here is, of course, looking at you, one is the industry, of course, Kenny John, and Nigel, you are with the regulation aspect of it. Is this collaboration we're seeing here real? Is it a genuine partnership that we're seeing here? How is this working, really?
I believe it's probably the most important aspect of this whole regime, and without the partnership, I don't think it would be successful. This all culminated in 2012, where literally the governor of the central bank, by invitation, invited members of the industry, financial secretaries, permanent secretaries, and regulators, locked us up in a room and said, we're not leaving until we come out with something. Having said that, it's with the backdrop that there was regulatory arbitrage, legal arbitrage that exists within our system, that is the OECS, which allowed a lot of what I would call capital flight of the resources of many of our citizens. And from that background, you then came out with something that you must change. Clear features of the Act are to make sure that, one, every company that operates within this jurisdiction must be capitalized within this jurisdiction. You must have a head office in this jurisdiction. That means you must have people who are accountable, a board, a managing director.
But are you aware that it's the regulator that will send you to jail? That is, when I read this
that
act,
is sitting next to
I mean, when you look at the act, and we're going to come to that, the amount of punishment, quote unquote, yes, or jail term that is mentioned, punitive measures. And we're going to come to this, of course. But why is this project important, and to whom?
I would say the project is important to all stakeholders, and let me identify a couple of stakeholders.
Please,
First of all, the main stakeholder is the customer, the consumer out there, the public who would be served by the insurance industry, by the pension industry. I think that's our key stakeholder, and that's who we always want to look to and make sure that we have structures in place to provide them with adequate protection. Then inside of that, you have the insurance and the insurance intermediaries. Those are the people providing the insurance services, and those are the people who are selling the insurance services. We also have pension, because the Insurance Act includes pension regulation. So the pension, the trustees and the pensioners, those are key stakeholders. Then, of course, we have government officials. We cannot do that without the support of the ministries of finance, the attorney generals, what have you. And you have the regulators. So I think what you have here is a collaboration of all of those stakeholders who have an interest in making sure that we have a safe and sound financial system. And I say financial system broadly, while the emphasis is on insurance and pension, but there is a connectivity between that and the rest of the financial system. So that is why we think it's so important that the regulators collaborate with all of the stakeholders, not just the industry, but we want to make sure that the industry is on board, because this is going to affect them. This is the framework through which they would be regulated. And as you rightly say, the Act is quite extensive, and there are a number of requirements within there. So we want to make sure all of the parties are on board with those
and
requirements.
we will be exploring this, you're turning a page, and we will be exploring this initiative in some details. But before we do this, and I think naturally before we go there, we need to know, because you're coming from somewhere. And the somewhere, as you alluded to earlier on, is the failures of a number of flight of capital, as you mentioned, Kenny, but also the failure of BICO and CLICO in particular, and the implication for, as you say, not just the stakeholders, but the consumers, the customers here. But what has been achieved so far in terms of for those persons that have been affected, as you begin to turn a page and move on, what is the status there?
Well, let me approach it from two stages. One, where we are now, and where we are now is post 2009. So
that's correct.
There's a lot that has improved since then.
Yes.
We have stronger regulation. We have greater collaboration between regulators within the region. Well, among regulators, because there are a number of us. There's a number of formal structures in place for us to talk to each other and for us to collaborate on a number of initiatives. Something which was lacking prior to the 2009 issue. So I think we've come some ways there, but we are not where we need to be.
So you're saying the regulatory regime then failed totally in this regard? And I asked this question, and let me tell you why I asked this question, because only today, talking to rank and file persons at the Seamen and Waterfront Workers who were receiving pensions from CLICO. It is months now since they have received any pension. In other words, what is the recourse there? What is happening? But also, given that situation, is the regulator supporting the initiative that has been taken by some of the other investors regarding the setting up of an organization to essentially represent their interests in going forward? Is the regulator supporting this?
The regulator has not been involved in that initiative.
Okay.
And to date, we've not. I know that we were invited to one of the meetings, which we attended, but we've not been formally engaged. In fact, we've asked the persons involved to meet with us, and we have a meeting planned for next week so that we could get a better idea as to what is happening on that front. So at this point, we are not engaged. We do not have a lot of information on what is happening. We know that there's an initiative there, but we need to pay attention. And the idea is to follow up. The idea is to get more information on what is happening, to make a decision as to where
because
the
it's important. We can't forget about that as we go forward. But let's go to the regulations, because this is where we are going to hear. The exacting clause of the Act talks about a fair balance between the many stakeholders, and you refer to them: the insurers, the insured, pension fund providers, beneficiaries of pension funds, the public, and the protection of consumers in particular, as you alluded to. But how are the public participating in the development of this major piece of legislation, this reform relating to the industry? How are they participating?
Right, and herein is where part of it is some of the discussion, like what we have in here today. I am actually scheduled to go throughout the region, and Grenada would be included on that roadshow, talking to the general public, talking to the other stakeholders, and inviting their comments and feedback. There's a piece of legislation out there. The legislation has had the review of the industry. It had the review of the regulators. It had the review of some international standard setters. We've had people from the World Bank look at it. It is something that is also going to be made available to the public. So the public would have an opportunity. But by these engagement, we are hoping to also get the public on board and also inform them of what we're doing. So I want to quickly take an opportunity to kind of give a quick idea as to what is involved in this market.
Please.
Basically, what we're talking about is instead of having discrete insurance markets within the ECCU, so Grenada has an insurance market, St. Vincent has one, Dominica has one, we are looking at creating a single market. Similar to what I would say the EU in terms of how it operates, but what you would have is a single market where insurance companies would be able to operate. So an insurance company that is established in Grenada will be eligible to operate in St. Vincent, Dominica, what have you. That means that consumers throughout the region would have access to more companies, to have access to more products and better service. There should be increased competition because there's more companies within the space, and you would then find that companies would have to lift their game. Kenny talked earlier on about there's increased capitalization, and you pointed out that there's increased regulation. So that should offer more protection to consumers. But I would say that what you should see coming out of that is lower cost of operation, because if you are dealing with one regulator, it means that your cost of compliance is lower. Now, whether that cost is passed on to the consumer or not, market conditions will determine that.
We expect it to be passed on the consumer anyway.
I would like
so you should not say whether.
And I would like to say that myself. But
it will be.
Since the regulator will not be determining the price,
Kenny
the market, and Kenny's a good person to ask that. But I would say that there would be a low operating cost based on the lower cost of compliance. There will be more products and service available because of the wide range of how the market will operate.
Granted, and we'll come to the scrutiny of this act. But one aspect of the proposed bill that drew my attention is Section 20, subsection 2, that says the commissioner may consult with the minister on the issuing of a license under the said section. Why so? But what is the power of the minister under this proposed bill?
The minister retains his power as a minister of finance, which means that he is he has responsibility for the financial sector within the region. However, there is a clear demarcation between the responsibilities of the ministers of finance and the commission. The commission has responsibility for regulation. And that is why you see the language say the commission may consult with. If you look at other language, the minister is responsible for regulation. The minister grants the license. If you look at well, I don't know which banking act we operate on, whether the new one is yet in place or whether it's the old one. But the old one, the minister granted the license. In a number of other arrangements, the minister granted the license. In this case, this is not the case. There is the commission may consult with the minister.
Right.
And there's a reason for doing that. The minister has a lot of knowledge about what's happening in the market. The minister has a stake in the success of the market. And as such, I think it's important.
Does the commissioner report to the minister?
No, the commissioner does not report to the minister. And the commission agreement is still in draft form. But the proposal in the commission agreement is that the commission reports to a board of directors. The board of directors report to the Monetary Council. The Monetary Council is the council of ministers of finance within the region. So you do not report to the Minister of Finance of Grenada or the Minister of Finance of St. Lucia or Dominica, but you report, the commission reports to the board of directors, who in turn report to the Monetary Council.
In short, Byron, what you have is a situation as ECCB. Safe to say, it's non-banking financial services. So eventually the commission's power, as it will extend not only to insurance but credit unions, money services, etc., etc. Insurance which is a major arm. I think one of the issues that you have in the industry or throughout the region is the understanding of insurance, how large insurance is, and therefore the importance to make sure that it's regulated in a uniformed manner. As exists now, every island have their own little
regulatory
nuance.
We have to take a break now, gentlemen. Viewers, we'll be right back.
Grenada, we are now on to the round of 16 in the 7th annual Wagiti Super Knockout Football Tournament. This weekend, we have a huge lineup on Friday, 6 November. Yes, Friday, 6 November. 2 big Premier League teams will compete to open this round. In Game 1, Shantimel FC will play the guys from River Road, Queen's Park Ranger. And in game 2, the boys from Sunset City, Hurricane Youth, will face St. Andrews Giants, Paradise FC. And then on Saturday, November 7th, we have the Clash of the Titans. In game 1, Santin Bullets GBSS plays the boys from the Fishing Mecca, St. John Sports. And in game 2, the defending champions, Hurricane, faces Boca Juniors. Football action this weekend, Victoria Park, Grenville. It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be competitive. Admission $10 to both games, so get in early. Sponsors: Carib, Digicel, The Guardian Group, Duty Free Caribbean, Quartz Grenada Limited, York Sneakerwear, Hot Boy Restaurant, Caribbean Classic Cola, Grenadian by Rex Resort, Community Channel 6, Going Places Travel, Spice Vibes, GoToFed.com discount card, Wagiti Rental and Sound Company, Grenada Tourism Authority, Glenelg Springwater, Boss FM, Design Factory, Grenville Cooperative Credit Union, and Clax Court. Remember, games are Friday and Saturday.
How do you choose your toilet paper? Just because it's soft and nice. That's how I choose my toilet paper. Made right here in the Isle of Spice. Cherish Spring Soft Harbor Bay. Super value every day. The price is right and locally they're made. Support local when you purchase Cherish and other quality brands from Grenada Paper Products.
Coming up next week on Caribbean's Next Top Model.
I have no idea what's coming next. If we are nude, oh my goodness, my parents are gonna kill me.
When you're in a photo shoot, you keep your eye on the camera all the time, all the time.
I just don't believe the right girl went home.
If for you to be up there, people have to be down there.
Ayana has to calm down in those things. She cannot make fun of those things.
I still think this girl is crazy.
Join us every Monday at 9 p.m.
Grenada, the concert of a lifetime is here. The benefit concerts. It's time to give. Lend a hand to Dominica. Saturday, November 7th, Grenada National Stadium. We join forces to make a contribution towards Dominica. And coming for this mega concert, live for the Dominica, the Ecstasy Band.
Are you ready to fest?
Ecstasy Band. Along with 6 local bands, Soul Deep Back in Time, Spice Rough Love, LGPM Band, and Mr. Killer and his band. Local acts include Anchamo, Inspector, Talpree, Woodsman Kelly, Scholar, Lucky Spark Electrify, Papa Jerry, Brother B, Shock Prick, Cloud 5, Emily Rapier, and coming straight out of Trinidad, Second Star. You are the best, my girl. David Rudder. International gospel artists Shirley Simpson and Gerald Placid, along with GBN Gospel winner. The benefit concerts. Advance tickets cost $25. Showtime 7 p.m. sharp. Sponsored by
Residents of St. David. Flo has a special offer just for you. Sign up for any of our 3 services and receive the following: free installation on cable, free installation on broadband, plus half off our Wi-Fi modem. Sign up for a landline and receive 1 month free service. This special offer ends Saturday, November 7th, 2015. Visit your nearest Flo office to sign up today.
No matter how careful you are, accidents will happen. But with Garden Group's comprehensive range of insurance policies, we can take care of all the things you care for. From your car to your house, to your contents, to fire insurance, and much more. Guardian Group. Live safe. Live easy.
This is CC6 Newsnight Week in Review. And now a recap of this week's top stories. CC6 Newsnight Week in Review, Sundays 6:15 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. on CC6.
Welcome back, viewers. We're here with Kenny John. He's the Chairman and Managing Director of New Women Insurance, and he's also Chairman of the Insurance Association of the Eastern Caribbean. And also Nigel Street. He's the Deputy Executive Director of GAFIN and Chairman of the Regional Steering Committee on New Insurance Regime in the Eastern Caribbean. Gentlemen, welcome. And of course, we're discussing the new insurance regulations of the OECS. the president of the OECS Insurance Association, Claudius Francis, was here some time ago. And I quote him, yes, and he said he was not impressed with the OECS Insurance Act. He said that it's meant to punish. This was said at a lecture organized by yourself, sir. To what extent is the new Insurance Act punitive for him to be making this statement?
My colleague, as is the case with most of our colleagues in the association, believe that some of the measures that are put in the new act are extensive and they go far beyond what we would have seen before. So there are various points about the act that ourselves and the regulators do disagree on. So while we are making this attempt to have uniform legislation, there are issues of concern, obviously, that the market have. I think one of the big concerns would be the size of the companies. Now, as you could imagine, a company that is smaller and that is an insurance company would have a lot of problems meeting some of the compliance issues that are set out in the Act. In fact, some of it, when we look around the region, most of the companies are probably on the smaller side. The ones who are capable of Grenada is I would say, lucky. We have our companies that are medium size to larger that are domiciled in Grenada. Mm-hmm. But I think those are some of the challenges and the fear of people losing either their jobs or giving up what they would have worked for over the last 20 years. And those are some of the issues that we have to iron out. There's increased capitalization, but that capital is just one stage of it.
But let's talk about it. It's important because I'm to understand. Sure, please, yes.
I hear you on the issue of the fines within the Act, and I agree that there are more fines within the Act than existed previously. But I think you need to look at it from 2 points of view. There are requirements in the Act which are prudent, and there are requirements which are punitive.
Yeah.
The prudent requirements are the one to deal with capital, to deal with solvency. Those are requirements which say that a company must be of a certain caliber, company must have a certain financial strength for it to operate within the market. And I think those are the prudent ones. The ones that are punitive are saying that where you step out of line, the idea is that there must be fines that you find to be that are not trivial. It must be something that you would respect the fine. So the intention is to make the fine such that companies will not want to step out of line. But the only time the fine applies is when you step out of line. So what I'm saying, you could operate for all of your life without ever having a fine. So the idea is not to say, well, a company must be able to pay the fine, or we need to make sure that the fine is small enough that you're able to afford it. No, the idea is that we don't want you stepping out of line.
I think,
and also I want to add that the fines within the Act is still being calibrated. So they are not final. What you have is the second draft. It is still out for consultation. We are still listening to the industry, and it's still being calibrated.
Kenny, and I want to go back to you because you start talking about the local market in some respect, and what's coming out here. And I'm going to ask you this. First of all, does the Act discriminate against smaller companies? A smaller company, I'm not to understand, the solvency of capital requirement is what, $2 million to be acquired over
present in Grenada.
Larger companies, $5 million?
No, actually, no. What it does have is one capitalization, which is $3 million for general insurance companies.
Okay.
Now, Grenada probably experiences the higher end. Mm-hmm. So ours is $2 million. Mm-hmm. The new Act proposed $3 million, and on the life side, $7 million. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the arguments that the industry have for companies in the region that belong to the region, investors, to raise $7 million to start a life company, you may never see another life company starting out of the bowels of the Eastern Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And so those are things, in essence, there is no difference between a foreign company, i.e., one from, let's say, outside of the OECS, and one that is domiciled or came out of the OECS. Mm-hmm. And those are some of the things, two issues that we brought. Mm-hmm. the regulators, there's some questions that they've raised about that. Agreeable though, companies should be of a certain size, have the necessary infrastructure and financial strength. What we're saying essentially is, in order to have that capital depth, places like Canada, Trinidad did it over time. And so let's look at it and maybe have a situation where if you operate in a single island, that there may be some considerations for capitalization of a certain level. But if you have to go beyond that and you want to be an ECCU underwriter, then we could. So there's some variations that I believe that could be looked at, and the discussions are still ongoing.
Are we beginning to see the what we know, for example, one small insurance operator, Grenada Motor in general, their portfolio has been taken over by Nagico out of Saint Martin, and they are now an agent. Are we likely to see more of these regional carriers taking over our smaller companies?
Well, and let me just go back a little bit to deal with the issue that about small companies.
Sure, but we want to. But
I
is
will,
that trend
I will
fine?
address that issue. No, we talked
problem.
about, and Kenny made the point about local companies versus foreign companies.
Yeah.
The concept within the market is that there isn't local and foreign companies, because all companies will be required to establish a presence within them. So they would all be required to incorporate. So at the end of the day, we will have all quote-unquote local companies. They might be owned by foreigners, but they would all be local company in terms of being incorporated and established within the region. So that's the first thing. And they would all have the same capitalization, because there wouldn't be the concept of foreign versus local. Then we started a program by talking about who's our key stakeholder, and we identified the general public and the consumers as our key stakeholder, which means that we want to make sure that the companies who operate in here are companies who have the financial wherewithal to be able to deliver those services, and to be able to deliver those services even in tough times. So while we are sympathetic to small companies, and we want to make sure that we have to balance that against the interests and the protection of the policyholders and the consumer. We want to make sure that the companies are not companies who have the wherewithal to do that. So the capitalization is calibrated to address that. We have other measures in place, the solvency requirement, the insurance fund requirement, what have you. All of those are calibrated to make sure that we attract business and retain business within the region, while also offering that level of protection to consumers. Now, the question about taking over the portfolio, which I promised I would come back to.
Sure.
I would say that as the market develops and evolves, you would see a number of changes taking place. I think you would see small companies coming together and forming bigger companies, because they are now seeing that there are greater opportunities out there. If I'm a small company in Grenada and I want to now be able to offer my services elsewhere, I would probably enter into a relationship with a company elsewhere. So I'm saying that you do not necessarily would see companies leaving, but I think the operating structure might change over time. You will see companies being more interested in coming into the market, because to come to Grenada with 100,000 people versus coming into the region with 550,000 people, I could see it being more attractive to some companies. But the market will change, the structure will change, but I don't think we will see a loss of insurance products and service within the region.
I think that for the companies that operate throughout the region, the bigger the company, obviously, that's fantastic. Grenada, I don't think, is at risk of having any company that is domiciled here that has a problem per se with either solvency requirements or capitalization. I think that there are three companies that are cited by Gaffin as being local. I think all three companies are as far as capital and infrastructure would withstand it. However, in territories like, for example, Antigua, which have a number of smaller companies, and perhaps in St. Lucia, where the companies that are domiciled there are perhaps in the bottom 5 rather than the top 5, you hear utterances. And so it's to find those synergies. But one point that we have to bring up, because this is about the business of business. This act and the whole regime, to me, is about economic intelligence. And we have to think about that in the context of which it is. We want companies to operate within this region and being accountable. At the same time, as insurers, we have to lift our game. We cannot expect what happened in 1997, for example, to obtain in 2015. Now, I think a lot of the utterances also come from the fact that a lot of these smaller companies are what you would call, were, I think, created from agents who would have had some money. And so they're operating like super agents rather than companies. They may not have the infrastructure to deal with reinsurance experts, etc., and underwriting experts, actuaries, the way that larger companies would have. So Nigel is correct from that point of view. You may see, however, the culture of where we live does not lend itself often to us coming together very often.
I think it's very interesting having the regulator, the regulated present. And one of the things that struck me is that in reading the act is that the regulator will have a say. In other words, he must provide, or she, the regulator, would provide a no objection to who you determine to be on your board.
Your shares. And
your shareholders.
Yes.
That's far-reaching, but we'll come back to this. We also want to look a bit deeper into the single market, the market aspect.
Sure, right.
Okay.
Viewers, we have to take a break. We'll be right back.
This week on the NFL, Flo brings you the Green Bay Packers versus the Carolina Panthers. The NFL fever is on. Tune in this Sunday at 2 p.m. and step inside the game. That's the Green Bay Packers versus the Carolina Panthers, exclusively on Flo. The road to the Super Bowl starts now.
2, 3, 7. If you wanna check the Grand Lac balance on your phone, or report a faulty line near your home, if there is an emergency, take out your phone. These are 3 numbers that you should know. 2, 3, 7. Call me anytime, I'm always on the line. 2, 3, 7. Just call me anytime.
GrenLec Community Partnership Initiative, improving education.
I know that we are challenged right now because of the economic downturn, but I know that GrenLec is reaching out. They have seen the need to collaborate together with the St. Max Football League to make a presentation to Bonnet Government School and to the students in particular. And we hope that whatever happened here today, it will be just the beginning of greater things to come between Bonnet Government School and GrenLec.
A collaboration of the Government of Grenada and GrenLec.
You like it? Yeah, nice.
Like a fool, I went and stayed too long. I'm wondering if your love's still strong. Ooh, baby, here I am, I'm still delivered.
Oh, it's time to go.
Oh, our window. Alright. Here I am, baby. Oh, have a good day.
St. Lou, they came true.
St. Lou Metal, 19 Frecuente Industrial Park. Call us on 439-6538.
Let's go!
I want it right there.
Behind to beat them, you put the children in front to whip them.
Welcome back, viewers. We're here with Kenny John and Nigel Street discussing the new insurance regulations overseas. Gentlemen, one aspect of the new act is, then, and correct me here, is that there was not a lot of mention about the health insurance sector, and this is some people express this of cause for concern, and particularly an age limit of 70 years has been applied for medical health insurance coverage in Grenada. Many agree that this is a critical time when seniors and persons in their golden years need health insurance. Why is there absolutely no regulations on this important sector of insurance?
If I may, Byron, this is more of a market issue than it is a regulatory issue. The regulations does not actually make any mention of any age. However, we have a market in the Eastern Caribbean where we're struggling to get to 550,000 people. We tend to look at the bigger countries who have mass, their economies of scale, and therefore underwriters and investors can apply that sort of facility to be able to make money out of it. It's a business, and it's all about making money, and it's about the frequency and severities of claims. We are in a group of people from the Caribbean and the Latin America. Our mortality tables are reflected in the decisions that underwriters make through actuarial data that is collected and compiled in order to set rates. And so this question is more of a market issue than it is a regulator. The regulator has never basically said to any company, you can't do this or you can't do that.
So it's a consumer issue. In other words, should there be consumer advocacy to deal with that? Or it's simply a business decision, profit and loss. You're going to lose money if you insured persons over 70.
I think it's, you see, even in the event where people over 70 in the larger countries have insurance, it's the cost. And so the cost of it is sometimes prohibitive. And therefore, you would find that as a facility, a company saying that, look, I only have 2 customers who are over 70. Why should I have a facility, have reinsurance in place, have actuaries design a product, etc.? One product costs in excess of 50,000 US to design. So if you're going to extend that, the actuary, obviously, it's not worth it. And therefore, that business decision is more or less what influenced the availability of that product.
Okay, I have a caller on the line. I have to go to the lines. Good evening, caller. Good evening, caller. We may have lost this caller. Look, I want to make a point about corporate governance, though, because the subcommittee and the subcommittees that make up this corporate governance, and I want to say that this committee deals with developing process procedures for the nomination, appointment of board members of the commission, and governance structure of the commission. But I notice that Grenada is not represented on this committee at all. Why is this so?
No. I don't think.
From the information provided,
there is going to be nominations. Nominations will come from governments. So there's 4 of the board members will be nominated by governments. 4 of the board members will be nominated by interest groups, stakeholders. So they would come from the insurance industry, from the legal fraternity, the accountants association. So they come in, those persons will be nominated. The selection will be done by the Monetary Council. But the nominees will come from 4 would be nominated by the government, 4 would be nominated by the various stakeholders.
I have to go to the line. Thank you. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please. We lost the caller. Okay.
On the issue of health insurance, though, just to quickly add that health insurance is available, and health insurance is considered within the legislation. It might not have been identified as health insurance, but there are provisions in place. In fact, right now, the both long-term insurance companies and general insurance companies are allowed to write health insurance. So health insurance is provided. The issue of the ceiling, it's a market issue, and it has to do with supply and demand. If I would argue that if there's sufficient demand for this product, I would see insurance companies responding to the demand. Of course, there's a cost involved. And as Kenny indicated, based on the size of the market, it means that you cannot spread the risk as widely. So there might be a cost, and I do not know whether the cost will be prohibitive. However, I would say if there's sufficient demand, I think the industry would respond.
One of the things that struck us here is that the design of the single insurance market and the regulator is of a U.S. design. And did the consultants and the local regulators examine any other models?
No, it's not USDs.
So I understood that the NAIC, which is based in Kansas, was the model.
The legislation is benchmarked against the Insurance Association, which is the IAIS, the International Association of Insurance Supervisors. So it is benchmarked against that. The committee, which I was a member of, visited the NAIC to look at their model. But we looked at a number of models. And if you look at the legislation, it's actually based on the Canadian model with a lot of input from the Australian legislation because the drafter is from Australia. So in looking at the legislation itself, the basis of it is a Canadian model with input from the Trinidad legislation. They recently did this. They're still working on it.
Okay.
The St. Lucia legislation, which recently was amended and upgraded, and the Australian legislation. Then that, when drafted, was benchmarked by the World Bank against the IAIS core principles.
Let's look a bit at the market, the single insurance market that we have a caller online. Good evening, caller. Good evening, caller.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Campbell. Yeah, good evening. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Good evening.
Yes, hello?
Go ahead, please. We're hearing you.
Yes. Let me say good evening to your guest there, Senator Humphrey here.
Good evening, Senator.
I'm making more a series of observations than asking questions. First and foremost, this program is an exceedingly important program for the general public. I would wish that as many people as possible follow tonight's program and subsequent programs. May I appeal to the regulator to ensure that there's an ongoing educational program in respect to insurance. But some of my observations first and foremost. I agree that first of all, the regulations need to be stringent. We need to drive out of the market small, non-viable businesses who take people's money, and that money is put at risk. We've just come out from a situation where I think the losses is close to $800 and something million that went up when British, American, and Clico collapsed. It amounted to 17% of the GDP of the entire OECS. That's an enormous amount of money. Right, so that we have to examine the regulations which are coming now in the face of the massive catastrophe. And let me get more specific, because when one talks numbers, one sort of decouples it from the human face. Today, as I speak, there are dozens of workers who worked all their lives, made all of their contributions, collected by agents. And I'm speaking specifically about by Clico. And today these workers' pensions have been suspended. That is the human face of this catastrophe. So while I understand this whole talk about letting smaller companies survive, the interest of the public is not small companies. The interest of the public is the integrity of the business and whether or not, having collected your contributions over your lifetime, when it's time to pay up, that you are there. That's the first point. The second point is this. I am amazed that in the face of this grave injustice that's been done to so many people, not a single individual is before a court of law. Not a single one of these persons are facing charges before a court of law. The U.S. Appeal Court only last week upheld the sentencing of Alan Stanford when he challenged the fact that he was convicted and received 110 years in jail. In the face of the collapse of British American, Clico, and the collapse of Capital Bank and other financial institutions, not a single person throughout the Caribbean is before a court of law, save Mr. DeBerg. And there seems to be no haste in getting justice for those working people who would have had all their life savings just liquidated, as it were, disappeared. Nobody has been brought to account for these things. The final point is this, and I'm coming now to health insurance. The health insurance industry is running amok. There are no regulations with them. The health insurance companies, they are judge, jury, and executioner. They decide when they pay in a claim, how much in that claim they're going to pay, and when they're going to pay it at all. They collect your money, and when you have a medical incident, it is like hell to get compensated. And I believe the time is right, Mr. Regulator, for serious regulations to be imposed on those who sell health insurance products to ensure, first of all, there must be some independent body to which you can go, other than a court of law, and to engage expensive lawyers, where a client, and the thing is this, under my union, we have a number of health insurance policies, and we are basically helpless in the face of these companies. When you lodge a claim, they deny the claim. They won't give you a proper basis upon which the denial is made. They take their own good time. Sometimes weeks, months go by before your claim is paid, right? And the consuming public is really at the mercy of what I described. And no offense to the gentleman here, my good friend, there's no offense to you, but there are mercenaries operating inside of this industry. Senator, that needs to be weeded out. And I believe not less regulation. I think we need to have more regulation, more stringent regulation, and more punitive penalties applied for those who breach those regulations.
Thank you very much, Senator. That's all the time. That's all the time we have. Thank you very much for your contribution.
If I
please,
may,
yes.
if I may make some comments. Yeah. The senator is totally right with regards to the strength of companies operating in the region, and the Act seeks to do that. I don't think you can ever take away the fact that an insurance company, you put in your money and that is a promise to pay. Unfortunately for our people who went through the Clico-Bico debacle, my father being a case in point, who worked all his life for a company who had a pension, which even today, as he lay in his grave, never got it. So this regulation seeks to bring people, to hold them accountable. And recently speaking to the executive director of GAFIN, visiting with some colleagues, he said we need some people to jail, basically. And I understand. But let me make a further point. In the 60s, early 70s, Trinidad did something remarkable. Trinidad then had banks and insurance companies were mainly Canadian in origin. And they said in order to operate in Trinidad, you have to bring your head office here, which is very similar to what we're doing. What happened? The Canadian banks and insurance companies decided, I am not coming to Trinidad. This is beneath me. As a result, the Trinidadian companies got those companies that were left, and then they flooded it through the Caribbean. The Eastern Caribbean need to galvanize itself and protect itself. And this is another industry position. We are not seeing through this act any protection, as it were, for companies to develop an insurance market that is dominated by the Eastern Caribbean.
Nigel, I know you want to respond to some of the things that the Senator have said, but I have someone on the line. I'll go to the line. No? Oh, okay, sorry. No, we don't have that person. Viewers, we take a short break. We'll be right back.
No matter how careful you are, accidents will happen. But with Garden Group's comprehensive range of insurance policies, we can take care of all the things you care for. From your car to your house, to your contents, to fire insurance, and much more. Guardian Group. Live safe. Live easy.
Hey, what happened to you? Your husband beat you up again?
No, chikungunya.
Chikungunya. All under your eyes swell up, all your jaw swell, even your mouth.
I tell you, chikungunya.
Listen, you don't have to be afraid to report the matter, you know.
I tell you, chikungunya. I catch you for the 6th, 7th time.
All right. Watch. Talk to a counselor, or better yet, walk away. You're not guilty of anything. You are the victim here.
Domestic violence would not go away if victims do not walk away or refuse to speak out. It is a cycle that goes on and gets worse and worse over time. Break the silence and begin the road to getting your life back and living without violence.
Add the best phone service to the fastest broadband in Grenada, and you get Flow, Surf, and Chat. With 10 megabytes per second, you can surf the web, download a lot faster, and keep up with your friends on Facebook. Plus, get a landline with no strings attached. Get the lowest calling rates and 500 free minutes to call local and Caribbean landline for just $95 a month. Don't be fooled by those fast-talking ads. Get Flow, Surf and Chat, and turn up your home entertainment. Nobody beats Flow for your home. Sign up and save today. Flow.
You like it? Yeah, nice.
Like a fool, I went and stayed too long. I'm wondering if your love's still strong. Ooh, baby, here I am, signed, sealed, delivered.
Oh, it's time to go.
Oh, our window. Aye.
Here I am, baby. Oh,
Have a good day.
St. Lou, they came true.
St. Lou Metro, 1950 Industrial Park. Call us on 439-6538.
Them don't know about Mars, boy. So when we reach his bacchanal, tell them no we pass. When we reach his bacchanal, you rum in your glass. When we reach his
I hope them producers and them hear that selection day, you know.
then we show them Mars.
Fridays at 8 p.m. on CC6, TC6.
Welcome back, viewers. We're here with Kenny John and Nigel Street. We're discussing new insurance regulations. Nigel, the Senator Humphrey was talking. I know you want to respond to some of the issues that he raised.
I would love
Please,
to. And
yes.
I want to first of all thank the Senator for his very insightful remarks, because I think he hit the nail on the head. I think he put it squarely where it needs to be. In that, as regulators and the regulation, our primary focus must be the consumer. Our primary focus have to be the policyholders. So while we have a vested interest in the success of all of the players in the market, and yes, we have to balance and make sure that the players are able to operate in the market, and here I'm referring to the insurers and the insurance intermediaries. But again, our primary focus as a laser has to be on the policyholders and the protection of the policyholders. He also asks about where we could provide additional information and encourage us to do that. And I want to say that we've heard that call and we are doing that. In fact, on the 8th of December, we will be having a series of consultations in Grenada, where we would be having
at the community level.
We would be having radio programs,
Okay.
TV programs.
Okay.
We would be inviting the general public to a town hall type meeting where persons could come, sit with us, discuss, ask questions, get responses, and similar consultations like that are going to be happening throughout the Eastern Caribbean. In fact, I am in Antigua on the 6th of November. I am in Dominica on the, not the 6th, sorry, on the 16th.
Because your responsibility is sub-regional.
So I am
Yes,
traveling
yeah.
throughout
Yeah.
the region,
Yeah.
doing similar programs and reaching out and talking to the public, the stakeholders, the insured.
But you have the same collaborative approach with the
And
insurers?
yes, we are. Because on the steering committee, which I chair, we also have representatives from the industry.
Okay.
So they are representatives from the industry at the decision-making level. And we purposely wanted it like that because we wanted them to have a seat at the table. This is not contentious.
I think it sends a
important.
very good signal
Exactly.
to the consumer.
And they
Absolutely,
are
yeah.
equal involved at every level of the decision-making and in every level of crafting the end product. Part of the features of the market, as I talked about the structure of the market, but also there's going to be a uniform piece of legislation. in that we will have the same piece of legislation passed in all of the islands. There will also be a single regulator, which means that because you're having a single regulator, that regulator would have more resources available to it. So instead of the fragmented structure we have now, where you have to resource 8 regulators who are all under-resourced, you would have one regulator who is well-resourced, who has the capacity and the capability to effectively carry out the regulation.
But one point I want to raise here, you said that in your documentation that the economic realities of the region creates a comparative advantage for the establishment of this single insurance market and pension fund market in the ECC. But you need to explain this for us.
Yeah, the reality is that we are all small open economies with limited resources.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense for us to work together. Whenever we try to work separately, we are all trying to create the same infrastructure in every island, and we are all under-resourced about it. So the economic realities of the region, the fact that we have limited resources, creates the dynamics for us to work together. That is the only way we could achieve the economies of scale required to run this thing efficiently. And we've seen the reality of when we don't do it like that, what has happened. And we've seen when we do it like that. We have the case of the central bank, we have the case of ECTA, we have the case of a number of other regional institutions where the region have come together and developed something that works better than when we try to do it individually.
Kenny, you are, of course, collaborating with the regulators here in terms of emerging with
He's
a
collaborating
regulatory
with the enemy, it sounds like.
You know, but
I have to say, Byron, you know,
what is your comfort zone here?
No, the comfort.
I mean, are you able
the
to openly discuss and to give your views in terms of what you're not comfortable with, in terms of the level of control that?
Let me explain.
Yeah,
it is important that all stakeholders are on board.
Yeah.
In fact, I was given the task of appointing 2 members of my organization,
that is
which I chair, the Eastern Caribbean the Insurance Association of the Eastern Caribbean.
Yes.
And it could not be me because we already have other Grenadians on it. We wanted to get a fair spread throughout the region. And it is important. The association actually is in support of the act. It is something that we should have done a long time ago to protect ourselves and protect the policyholders. Yes, there are issues. And I'm due to voice them because they are members of the association who have different opinions about different things. But by and large, this must happen. This is the way it must go. We are too small, with fear of repeating what Nigel just said. The resources are not there. Likewise, we have to lift our game in the region, even more so. You see, collaboratively, we can collect data and are better able to treat with financial disasters, just as the one we had. At 17% of the GDP of the Eastern Caribbean, I don't think people understand.
It's a lot of money.
That rocked the Eastern Caribbean.
Look, I mean, we're coming close to the end, but you intend to launch a single market regulator in March of 2017. Another 17 months. What are the must-do activities that must happen before this happens?
Important to this is the passage of the Insurance Act. And as you will understand, the difficulty of passing uniform legislation in 8 sovereign, well, not all sovereign, but in 8 jurisdictions. So that's a challenge. We hope to have that in place by the end of July of 2016. So that's the timeline we've put in place. We also have to pass the Commission Agreement Act, which is the piece of legislation that would give life to the regulator. There's also an agreement, the Commission Agreement, which is also in place, which has to be signed on to by all of the islands. So that is a must-do. Then once those things happen, we have to start building the infrastructure for the regulator. So we're talking about staffing, we're talking about location, we're talking about systems, we're talking about boards of directors and what have you. So all of that, we're hoping we will be able to do that in the second half of 2016. So once the legislation is passed, we hope that between July of 2016 to December, we should be able to put some of those structures in place with the idea of going live in March of 2017. Now, going live, we have to explain what that means, because it doesn't mean that when it goes live, it would automatically start regulating insurance business throughout the region. The Commission will still require a phased-in basis. So GAFIN will still be doing insurance business, but it will be doing it under the auspices of the Commission. It will be doing it as an agent of the Commission.
That was your closing remarks. You got 10 seconds. What's yours?
I'm pleased and privileged to work with Nigel and all the people in the Eastern Caribbean, particularly the governor of the central bank, who was particularly keen to have this legislation and this regime in the Eastern Caribbean. I believe it's a new enlightenment. It makes economic sense. It's about economic intelligence, and the business of business is something that we in the Eastern Caribbean have to keep our minds about ourselves.
That's 13 seconds. Thank you very much. Viewers, that's all the time we have. I want to thank this gentleman for being here. We'll see you next week. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Good night. All right.